there guys, I am back for what is hopefully going to be the last video in the Q&A. I've got about 10-ish more questions to answer, so I'm just going to jump right in, and I want to get this thing finished. As much as I love answering your guys' questions, I don't want to drag it on too long. So the first question comes from Awesome Amanda, who asks how I control my anger. I already sort of answered a similar question. I think it was in part 3 of the Q&A. Somebody had asked me how I deal with stress, and my process for dealing with all of my emotions is pretty much the same. I sit down and kind of have a talk with myself. I talk myself down. I problem solve, and I then focus on what it is that I'm angry, stressed, sad, etc. about once I figure out what the root of the problem is. I'm not a person who really gets angry. I don't feel that most things are worth getting angry about. I think anger is a really worthless kind of emotion, and the closest that I come to being angry is more or less frustration. I do get very frustrated, but I can't think of the last time that I was ever angry. It doesn't usually get to that point, so I guess I'm kind of lucky in that way. I don't have a short fuse. I don't deal with anger very often, and if I am frustrated and I feel it building, I can usually stop before I get to that point of boiling over and everything just kind of coming crashing down on me. The second question comes from Dunsparce Kirikazi, who is an acquaintance of mine, who asks if I would ever consider getting a Dunsparce tattoo. Now, what you have to know about Henri is he is completely obsessed with Dunsparce. No, Henri, I will not join the Dunsparce army by getting a Dunsparce tattoo. I mentioned in an earlier Q&A video that I don't have tattoos, and if I was going to get one, my first tattoo wouldn't be any kind of Pokemon, but if you want to get one, feel free, buddy. You know, it's a free country, do what you want, but that's definitely not in my mind when I think of getting a tattoo or what tattoo I would want to get. Next question comes from a once free man. I want to know if you'd be interested in doing a series with viewers and fans along the lines of your co-op Resident Evil videos. I'd love to play a game with you. I already kind of answered this question as well. It was the first question I answered in part 2, so if you go back to part 2 and you just watch, the first question I answer is sort of similar to this. I went on a big spiel about how I've started adding people to Steam in hopes that one day, once I get enough people, I can start playing online co-op games with you guys in streams, and maybe in playthroughs as well. I'm not entirely sure. I know that when Roman and I were doing Resident Evil 6, there was a lot of frustration when we went to do the online multiplayer stuff, the survivor mode, the siege mode, the onslaught, all that PvP type of stuff, because the online multiplayer was kind of dead at that point that we had recorded it. It was really difficult to find people to play with, and in a lot of cases we just barely scraped by with enough people to be able to record a video and show the mode off. It would have been really nice to be able to get enough people together to do something like a big siege. For example, when we did siege mode, we only had just us, basically, PvP, whereas you can have, I think, up to 4 or 5 people on each team. So there are instances where I think I would really like to incorporate fans into playthroughs. It would be nice to play with you guys. It would be nice to get the full kind of, I guess, experience out of the game that we'd be playing. But I wouldn't really do a playthrough with people, but definitely am interested in doing things in streams and kind of side multiplayer-ish type modes with people, hopefully sometime in the future. Next question comes from Jaden Delgado, who asks if I would ever do a Let's Play of Dragon Age. Let's Play, no. Stream, yes. You guys have probably seen when I do stream, I do like to do the open world kind of games. I like to do things like Saints Row, Fallout, Skyrim, those are all games I've done in the past. Other games that I would probably do on a stream if I felt like it would be something like Dragon Age 2, Oblivion, The Witcher, Kingdoms of Amalur, any of those kind of big, vast, open world kind of games. I just feel like a playthrough is really, really overwhelming in those kinds of games because there is just so much to do. I wouldn't know where to start, I wouldn't know where to end, and knowing me, personally, it just probably wouldn't be worth doing a playthrough of. I have played Dragon Age, I've played Dragon Age 2, but if there was ever an instance where I was going to go back and play them for any reason, then I would definitely consider streaming it at the very least, because it is a good, very entertaining series of games, and I think it would make for a very fun stream. Next question comes from Agron. I have to do one non-Harvest Moon and non-Resident Evil Let's Play I've already done to redo it. What one would I redo? Well, can I only pick one? I've mentioned before, when I look back at my old work, I'm really quite hard on myself, and there's a lot of stuff that I would probably redo. I think the one that I would like to redo the most would be Lost Odyssey, just because that, from the very beginning up until now, the last 5 years I've had it uploaded, has done really well. People still watch it, people still comment on it. It was one of the first projects I did, one of the biggest projects I've ever done on the channel to date. A very, very intensive, very time-consuming, something I'm very proud of. I think at the time when I was starting out with what equipment and stuff I had, I did really well, but I could just make it so much better. It was not in HD. I was using Windows Movie Maker at that point to edit things. I had a lower quality mic. I mean, just things have improved over the years, and I think that I could make it a lot better than it is. Now, the reason I haven't redone it is because I've told myself that for me currently, I'm not where I was 5 years ago today, so redoing a big project like that today in this day and age would be incredibly difficult for me. I used to put out like 5 or 6 videos a day. I used to just crank them out, and there's just no way that I could do that now. Something like that would probably be like Magna Carta, where it would just take me like over a year to do. But that is probably something, if I ever wanted to sit down and tell myself that I'm going to redo something, that would probably be it. And I have redone projects in the past. I just redid Magna Carta last year, and there's a couple other examples that I can think of. The Wind Waker I redid twice, not just once, but twice. So maybe sometime in the future I'll redo it. But that would probably be the one that I would want to redo the most out of all the projects that I've done in the past. Next question comes from Red Love. Have I ever thought of doing a more conventional or popular Harvest Moon game as a Let's Play? Well, to be fair, I've done Friends of Mineral Town, which is very popular. It's one of the more well-known and popular ones, in my opinion, especially on the handheld. I've done Animal Parade, which did very, very well. That, again, is one of those games where it did well when I started, and I still get comments and views and things on that all the time. That is very popular. And a lot of the other ones I've done, yeah, not so popular, not so conventional, but I feel like a lot of the popular ones, so to speak, are on handheld. I don't have a good way to record handheld. I don't have a capture card for handheld. I don't have a decent emulator, and recording emulation, especially on DS, just doesn't look good. So I've stayed away from handheld for that reason, and that's why I usually tend to go with the less conventional console versions. It's just a lot easier on me, and probably a lot easier on you as well. If I ever had the opportunity to record more conventional, I don't really know what you mean by that, or popular ones, then I probably would. I would really love to do Harvest Moon DS. That's probably one of my favorites of all time. And there's a couple other ones that I would consider giving a try as well. So maybe somewhere down the line, but I'm still not out of console Harvest Moon games to do yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. And Red Love's second question is, what do I think of Rune Factory if I've played it? I have played Rune Factory. I've played the first game, the second game, and I've played Tides of Destiny for the Wii. I like Rune Factory, but I prefer Harvest Moon. And the only reason I say that is because Rune Factory is almost a little bit too much. Rune Factory to me is really, really overwhelming when you bring in the monster aspect of it. I also find that the game's a bit more difficult to woo your wife. It just, everything takes a bit more time, everything's a bit more difficult, and I have a really hard time micromanaging everything that the game throws your way. So Rune Factory is a great series of games, great. I would like to play more of them just because, for the sake of playing them, but I do prefer Harvest Moon over Rune Factory for sure. Okay, next couple of questions come from Adam Block. First of which is, where did I get my username from? Well, this is kind of a long and embarrassing story. Back in the day, I made my YouTube account in 2007, so I've had my YouTube account for quite a while. Back in those days, rewind back to 06, 05, 07, that era, I was really big into Gaia Online, and I had two accounts that I used. One was just my name with an apostrophe, which was my main account. And then I had a sub account that was named Sex Flavored Chocolate. Do not ask me where my 12, 13, 14-year-old brain came up with that one, but alas, that was my second account. When I started to look into YouTube and I made my YouTube account, I wanted to keep the username kind of similar so that I didn't forget, I guess was my reasoning. I thought, well, if I make a YouTube account, I'm not going to use it much. I don't want to forget the login, and I want to kind of keep all of my usernames relatively the same. So I looked at my two usernames, my name, which was just Nikki, and I looked at the other one, Sex Flavored Chocolate, and I thought, well, probably don't want to go with Sex Flavored Chocolate for YouTube, but let's go with everything else in the username. So I took the word chocolate, and chocolate milk was the first thing that I thought of. So, long story short, pretty much completely random, just figured that that was an easy way to remember based upon what my username was on Gaia Online. So, chocolate milk's probably better than Sex Flavored Chocolate. Thank you, past me, for making that very, very smart decision. Adam Block's second question is, what is my favorite Resident Evil game I've played so far? Oh, don't make me choose. Oh, I just love the whole franchise as a whole. It's very hard for me to choose. I think my favorite is 4, just because that is the one that I played first. It's got the most nostalgia for me. Leon's a hottie. It's not the best in the series, though. I'm not saying that Resident Evil is my favorite because it's the best. I also really love the Resident Evil HD remake that they did. I had so much fun playing that when it came out at the beginning of the year, and there's just so many more that I love. There's really not any Resident Evil game that I don't at least like or tolerate or have played through, you know. It's just such a good franchise overall, and I just really love it. And then finally, their third question is, have I played Fire Emblem Path of Radiance or Radiant Dawn? Yes, I have. I've played and I own both. I wouldn't consider Let's playing them, though, because I'm very bad at Fire Emblem. There's a reason that I've never Let's played it, because I generally don't like to play games that I'm bad at because it's embarrassing. Strategy is not one of my high points, but Fire Emblem's, again, a great franchise, and I haven't played any of the newer ones. I'm kind of still stuck in the Fire Emblem days of GameCube, Wii, and I think I have Dark Dragon on DS as well. Okay, I'm almost done. Next question comes from Mike Lies. Well, next couple of questions actually. The first is, would I ever come to South Carolina? And will I be playing Dragon Quest Heroes when it comes out? When I visit somewhere, when I go anywhere, it's generally because I have a purpose of being there. I don't generally just visit places for the sake of visiting them. Anywhere that I've visited in the last couple of years has been to meet a long-time YouTube or internet friend on my way to a con, going to a con, those kinds of things. I don't generally just travel somewhere because I want to just travel there, you know what I mean? So if I had any kind of reason to go to South Carolina or anywhere else in the United States or in the world, then that is what would make me go, but I don't generally just kind of leisurely travel, so to speak. And will I be playing Dragon Quest Heroes when it comes out? Probably not, because I wasn't even aware that that was coming out. I guess I'm a little bit behind. I'm gonna have to look that up though, because I really like Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, that whole bit. But again, I can't keep up with every new release, and it just keeps flooding, you know, just so many new things coming out, and I do get kind of lost along the way sometimes. So I'll be looking that up, but obviously because I didn't know about it, I won't be playing it when it comes out. Next question comes from Nova MD8, who asks what my favorite book or book series is. I really like to read. I generally read books that are not part of a series. The last couple of years I've been trying to catch up on classic literature, so that's kind of just scattered all over the place between different authors and whatnot. My favorite book, probably of all time, is Anne of Green Gables. Mostly just because I read it as a kid, and it was really, I guess, inspiring. The main protagonist in the book was really inspiring to me as a young girl, and it was just a really good, fun read, and it's one of those books I just keep rereading all the time. Just a really nice read, just something nice and relaxing. Maybe not for everybody, but I really like it. And book series, the last couple of years, like I said, I haven't read many books in a series, but the two that I can think of that I've read probably in the last 2 or 3 years that have really stuck out in my mind and have probably become some of my favorites are Redwall. Redwall's kind of more of children's books, but they are just such a nice, light, fun, well-written read. I really recommend Redwall to anybody of any age, just because it is such a good read. The author is just so, or was, so wonderful. And Game of Thrones, I read, I think 2 years ago now, and that was quite a feat for me to get through them all, but I did, and I really, really genuinely enjoyed it very much. I haven't watched the show because I like what my imagination thought up when I read the books, and I don't want that to change. And I would reread Game of Thrones over and over and over again if I could. And the last question, finally, we're here, comes from Jaden Chia, who asks if chocolate milk is my favorite kind of milk. No, I just like regular milk usually. I don't think to use chocolate powder. I have a big container like this big in my drawer, but I never think to use it, and so it just sits in my cupboard until I think, yeah, hey, I've got chocolate powder, I should put chocolate in this and make it chocolate milk. But I really like all flavors of milk. I'm just a big dairy fan. Dairy products in general are great. I would be very upset if I was lactose intolerant, so anyhow, that's all the questions. If I missed your question, it's probably because you've asked it somewhere else, not in the actual Q&A video, the one I first posted asking people to ask questions. If you've asked me a question anywhere else, like on Facebook or Twitter, again, I've probably missed it. So if you want, you can ask me a question over at Ask FM if I've missed it, or if there's something else that you thought of, I'll post the link to my Ask FM in the description. And if you guys want me to do more Q&As anytime in the future, or you guys really like this, or you didn't like it, or whatever, just let me know, and I'll definitely take your feedback into consideration. Again, want to thank you all so very much. It was a lot of fun doing this. You guys, like I said, had really, really great questions for me. A lot of things I really had to think of, stuff that I just didn't come to mind right away. So yeah, it was great. Thank you all again so much for your support, and hopefully you will stick around and I can do another one of these in the future. So see you guys until next time.